I thought I was going to spend my days sailing the seven seas, exploring the unknown and living the life of a pirate. But that all changed when a violent storm caught me completely off guard, tearing through my ship and sending me crashing into the shores of an uncharted tropical island. There is no help coming, there is nowhere to hide, and if I want to survive, I'll have to find a way to endure the scorching heat, fight off dehydration, and protect myself from the terrifying tropical temporal storms that regularly tear across the island. But surviving isn't enough, I need to escape. And I'll have to claw my way out of this scorching tropical hell by any means necessary. I opened my eyes and the first thing I saw was water in my eyes. So since salt water in I-30, I emerged from beneath the waves and witnessed the land that must have saved me from drowning in the middle of an ocean. So naturally I swam up to the shore and looked around, scouting my immediate surroundings for anyone or anything that could tell me where I actually am. There was pretty much nothing but tropical island stuff, so I safely assumed that I must have ended up on a tropical island. I made my way alongside the beach in search of anything waves would have thrown ashore, and stumbled upon what seemed to be my old ship. Well, at least whatever's left of it. That storm really did it dirty, and then some higher powers put it here as an important story segment for me to find. But the most important part isn't the wreck itself, but rather the two suspiciously well-preserved chests that somehow survived the otherwise catastrophic incident. In the first one I found some charred bread and a sketchbook, and according to what's written inside I must have been some sort of a pirate with phenomenal digital art skills. But better yet, in the second chest I found what seemed to be my old firearm, alongside some bullets, a lever for reloading, some wadding, and a handful of gunpowder. How convenient. A gun will definitely come in useful, even if it is falling apart with only a fraction of its durability left and very limited ammunition. But that's also when I noticed my vision going all wonky and bright. And I haven't even touched any funny mushrooms yet. Instead, it's actually because the weather is a scorching 44 Celsius, or 111 Fahrenheit, meaning I am pretty much cooking alive as we speak. Thanks to a couple of mods, the hot temperature can now absolutely kill me if I don't find shelter soon. Or at least if I don't occasionally cool myself down in water. Water helps. After that I went out to explore the island itself to get my bearings right. This place isn't exactly huge anyway. We have vast expanses filled with bamboo and palm trees in the northern part of the island. We have a huge mountain pretty much in the middle, which is a nice navigational landmark to have, and a tropical jungle spanning the entirety of the southern part. And that's literally it. There's like nothing more here. So now with some geographical knowledge, I started napping some flint tools. It is obligatory for a vintage story video to mention how freaking cool is that. And as I was running around and picking up some sticks from trees, I got jumped by a slightly less scary Minecraft spider. Okay, I can't do anything. Me wasting the first bullet on the weakest Shiver variant is only the beginning of a series of disasters this night, because immediately after I started overheating and taking actual heatstroke damage. Turns out sprinting in full clothing in hell-hot temperatures is not a great idea. So with a wobbly and hard to control camera, I busted into the house of the first trader I saw and took off all my clothes without elaborating. When that didn't help, I frantically and very nakedly ran out and jumped into the first lake I found to properly cool down. And as if that wasn't enough, during my cooling bath, I started hearing monstrous noises I've never heard before. I've never heard that sound before. So without wasting any time, I ran back to the trader and spent my night there, still naked, but at least safe and in loving embrace of a finance man. And the morning also came quickly, and as it turns out, sleeping in scorching temperatures can lead to ouchie ouchie my eyes disease. So after cooling down in water, which is going to be a reoccurring thing now, I made my way back to the beach where I first woke up. Being next to water is absolutely crucial, it seems. I need shelter more than ever before, otherwise I am literally toast. So I went to the shipwreck once more and picked up the chests from the water. If they are here, why not use them? Then I cut down some fern trees, which drop firewood, and used all of that to set up a small camp with a campfire. Just like Tom Hanks did in that one movie about a guy stranded on an island making a camp with a campfire. So now having a place to call camp, I started gathering the local bamboo trees. And while initially I wanted to use bamboo to build a house just because it looked thematically tropical, I quickly realized it has many more uses. Not only is it an easy-to-get building material, but the extremely common baby bamboos can be prepared with a knife and eaten as an easily accessible food source. And the only downside being, it has no nutritional value, meaning it won't give me any bonus HP. But you can also make a hat out of it that cools you down a little, if you want. Fair to say I'm going to be a pretty big fan of bamboo on this island. Big bamboo fan with a big bamboo forehead. That's a really unflattering angle. Anyway, I started cutting down every bamboo tree I saw in the vicinity, and I cut a lot of it. While it is very common, a singular bamboo tree doesn't actually drop that much material, meaning I had to do a lot of cutting. And in between the bamboo runs, I was experimenting with ideas for my house. One thing I knew for sure was that I wanted it to be one of those floaty tropical island houses people drink martinis in. But then again, building a house always requires a lot of resources in Vintage Story. And a lot of resources means I need a lot of inventory space. And this is where papyrus comes in. This plant is the hot biome's version of cattails, meaning that after cutting the upper part of it, I can use it to make some baskets to have inventory space. And even if it doesn't provide a lot of it, at least it's better than nothing. So now, having baskets, I came back to building my house of bamboo. A bamboo. I wasn't really going for looks, because time was of the essence. Pretty much the entire thing was built using exclusively bamboo blocks and bamboo fences. And the only time I chopped down an actual tree was to make some crude doors, which are about as secure as something insecure. But ultimately the house got built fast, and it has a pretty strong tropical vibe to it. Outside we have a little storage area where I will be putting random things that look cool on the ground, like bamboo or your mom, and we have a special platform on the side for future rafts, boats and whatever platform like this can be used for. Not to mention the inside, which might be one of the most spacious starter houses I've ever built. Unfortunately, the thing I cared about the most didn't really work out that great. I am still cooking alive, now inside a house though. Spinning camera isn't exactly comfortable, but I did have a pretty solid idea why I'm still overheating. I probably needed to use actual windows and doors to seal the house properly and make it temperature neutral. So instead of doing that, I decided to ignore the problem and started making some javelins from some javelin mod. And I will use those as weapons of mass destruction on my way to hunt some animals and get some seeds. So I left my home beach and decided to explore the island for food that actually gives me HP bonuses. But you know, it's really hard to stay laser focused on one thing when you find so much cool stuff, like this ancient gravestone. I didn't even go 10 steps and I'm already sidetracked. Okay, but now I am laser focused on hunting the animals, which are mostly chickens I always want to domesticate and never do, and gazelles, which are just hot deer, but hot in like the way that they live in a hot biome, not like... And the hunt was going well, javelins are pretty overpowered, and the new hunting mods are pretty alright. I missed everything, holy. Damaging an animal means they leave a blood trail now, making it easy to follow them like a freaking predator. Plus, the lower the animal's health, the slower it runs, further adding to the realism and the fantasy of ancient human run for a long time catching up to prey thing. After cooking all that meat over a cool outdoorsy campfire, I finally had something with nutritional value, increasing my max health. But the rest of my hunting rewards, meaning the animal hides, turned out to be pretty useless. They are pretty good for making warm winter clothing, but none can be used to make anything that makes me cool down. And that meant, unless I like waking up to a heat stroke every morning, I need something better. And here comes bamboo clothing. No, I'm just kidding. It's grass clothes. It's just clothes made out of grass. Not only are they easy to make, because let's be honest, grass is not exactly hard to come by, but also perfect for hot weather. Each piece of clothing slightly protecting me from the deadly laser called the sun. Wearing the entire set, meaning grass shirt, grass pants, grass sandals, knocked down my entire body temperature by a couple of degrees passively. But apart from that, I also look hella hot in them, man. So now, being marginally less prone to constant brain frying, which let's be honest still was and is a problem, I started to do the next most logical thing. Manual labor in direct sun in the middle of the day. But the soil was needed for a farm. I started building right at the edge of my house. Since hunting and honestly doing anything was causing me to overheat fast, I wanted to have a source of food close by just in case. And the main idea was to plant rice, since it's pretty common here, but my main concern was that if the temperature reaches over 46 Celsius, rice just kinda dies. Bars. And we are currently at 48 Celsius in freaking May. Well, I decided to plant it anyway. Even if stunted, at least some crunchy rice will be had to add to my seawater and call it cereal. it was funnier when I wrote it. So while my rice grows and hopefully won't die, I gathered some papyrus roots and transplanted them to the bald spots on my home beach. This way, papyrus will slowly grow and I don't have to run in the sun to get it whenever I need it. And I kid you not, literally a minute later I noticed that my rice is already dying, but for a completely different reason. Apparently, seawater actively kills plants. I planted my rice in seawater, and that also means that this entire farm is just completely wasted. Rice or anything for that matter will not grow that close to the sea at all. And unfortunately, all the lakes with normal water are way too far from my home to use as farming spots comfortably. And the only thing that can save me now is God and a way to transport water, like a bucket. But for that I need a saw to make planks. And to make a saw, I need metal. And the only way to get it as of now is to get some bits of copper. I have some of those marked on my map already for that specific occasion. And in the spirit of keeping up the tradition of being a castaway man, I decided to keep my little diary going. After all, I got it back for a reason. Might as well document whatever's going on here. So I wrote my first entry and made a primitive drawing of my current base. I think it's turned out alright. I seem to have sick computer mouse drawing skills for a pirate. In pursuit of happiness and copper, I went out into the wilderness to my marked copper spots and picked up some magical copper rocks from each of the copper locations, occasionally also marking a couple of new ones, and fighting hordes of small grey men, and a couple of not so small Spider-Man that kicked my bamboo seed. Oh, I am almost dying. That constituted a small break from my copper hunting for the day, but already the next morning I was ready for more, exploring my beautiful island for more small metal chunks. And my travels pushed me far into the southern part of the island, where I realized that I might be slightly more lucky than intended. Apparently, the entire southern side of the island is just sitting on tons of limestone as its primary rock, meaning that I don't have to look for it when I need to make some lime water for leather making. But while limestone is nice, I still had only about 18 out of 14 necessary copper bits. So instead of running around in hellish temperatures, I decided to cut down a small tree and make a wooden pan. This way, instead of frying my butt off in a jungle somewhere searching for a slightly different colored rocks, I can comfortably sit in water and pan for the copper instead. The chance of getting copper during panning is pretty low, since there are many items you can get, but nowhere near low enough for this to not be worthwhile, as long as you can have the patience. So after about a half a day of swinging sandwater, I had the entire 40 copper nuggets no problem. So immediately the following morning I started shoveling away at some red clay deposits next to my house, and the main objective was to clay form a crucible in which I would smelt all those copper bits, but as usual I ended up making a whole bunch of the most important crafts and trinkets, including some bowls for eating and cooking, some basic molds for tools, and even an early anvil mold, which I don't usually do this early. And in the evening I had a whole collection of moist clay utensils. So the next morning I killed my neighbor that came from another dimension, but right after that I proceeded to gather all the things necessary for cooking the clay crafts so they harden. So that includes cutting down some trees, which logs will be turned into firewood, grass, which is grass, and a very limited amount of sticks from the already pretty rare stick bushes. Having all that done, I put all my clay thingies in separate holes and threw all the stuff I collected into it, igniting it at the end. Clay hardening should take about a day or so I have some free time now. And that's perfect, because I still have leftover firewood lying around, thanks to which I was able to start building the first charcoal kiln. It's fairly easy, and I've probably explained it like 10 times in each of my videos, but a charcoal kiln is basically just a dirt oven for firewood. After igniting the top, after some time, the wood inside will change into charcoal due to a chemical process called magic. I had issues at school, but all that fire made me think. That and the random shiver trying to domestically abuse me. I have a bunch of bones from my hand still, and according to some of you, bones can be used instead of sticks to make marginally more durable stone tools. And for once you weren't lying to me. Indeed, the bone tools are better by like 10 durability, which is not much, but it's not the point. The point is now I can use the bones of my enemies to gather materials. And thanks to those materials, which, let's not kid ourselves, was mostly bamboo, I made myself a raft. I wanted to explore the satellite islands, situated east and south of the main island. Turns out, this deserted island has brothers and sisters. So first I swam all around the northern cape and slinged myself towards the eastern outlying island. Although swimming took slightly longer than expected, probably because a bamboo raft is no boat, I managed to get to the land before cooking to death. And the island turned out to be a very flat land with only one notable thing on it, a clothing merchant. And that gave me an idea for the future. Since this guy does actually sell clothes that can protect me from the sun even more, all I needed was money. Apart from that, I explored the small island more thoroughly and messed around with some of the local shivers. Turns out this island not only looks empty, but it's also empty. Nothing here to see. So now I took the two smaller islands to the south as my next goal for exploration. And after a short cruise around the main island, I arrived at my destination. And apart from a bunch of rice crops, those islands had nothing going on for them either. Just two totally useless pieces of land. Turns out the main island I spawned on isn't so bad after all. At least we have some resources here or something, I don't know. And when I came back from my short voyage around the island, I noticed that all the molds and all the charcoal was cooked and ready to use. So now, having a bunch of clay thingies and a bunch of glorified burnt wood, I was finally ready to progress further. Or at least I would have, if not for a brand new addition that appeared out of nowhere. Apparently, now I can be thirsty. So not only do I have to manage my body temperature, hunger and general safety, but also I have to drink based on how hot it is. And that mod comes with a whole plethora of new additions. Like for instance, some foods having water content. Now not only can I eat bamboo, but also low-key drink it too, filling up my bumbelly with bamboo juices. But just as I was about to bamboo all over the place from excitement, the earth started shaking. My guy, what is going on? I have no clue what that was. Okay. Something just trembled the earth with just its scream, dude. What's going on? Well, a cosmic horror beyond my comprehension just trembled this land high into the Richter scale just by roaring. And then, it's just kinda stopped. So since I had no idea what that was, I decided to do what any other normal person would do. I tried drinking poisonous seawater to check if it's poisonous. It is. Turns out drinking salt water not only doesn't quench thirst, but it also adds that orange bit to the hunger meter, meaning drinking certain fluids can make me go into a hunger deficit. It's easily fixable by eating more food, but it's giving me an incentive to only drink safe fluids if I don't want to, waste food. And one way to prepare drinkable water is to grab some from the lake and boil it at home using a pot. This way I can safely drink without getting bad vibes orange hunger. And since I was already sitting on my bamboo platform cooking stuff, I threw some copper into the crucible and smelted all of it. And when it was boiling hot, I drank it too. No, actually, I just poured it into the molds, but I imagine it tastes like a glowing orange juice. So now, while the forbidden nectar is cooling down, I read up about building wells. Because of course we can build wells now. And the only kind I was able to dig up was the spring well, which are just shallow well holes in the ground that collect water from the nearby sources, filtering it in the process. I put a bunch of them next to the seawater, hoping that maybe they would be able to make this water drinkable, but no. That makes them produce salty well water, which is just as good for drinking as seawater itself. So while I was not giving up on the wells yet, I decided to resign from trying to make freaking seawater drinkable. So, to end that day, I went to sleep on my hay bed. But this time, another tremble woke me up in the middle of the night. And after the rumbling came weird mechanical noises, and then another powerful roar. Soon after that, Dave the Thunderlord appeared out of nowhere and started ominously circling around the world, trembling the earth with each step. I quickly grabbed the gun and ran outside yet again, and for the next couple of minutes, I was watchfully observing. A couple of minutes later, things started to pick up again. Lightning was appearing out of nowhere, but striking not from above, but coming from below. And mere moments later, a temporal storm has begun, spawning all the horrors imaginable, and all I had to my name was my half-broken rifle. I was clearly not winning this one, so I kept observing and frantically running around trying to kill time. And then the storm ended. Just like that. I might have installed one mod too many, because my grass pants just received a large quantity of fertilizer straight from the source. A little inventory scan later, and as it turns out, I only have about 13 bullets left, and about 3 waddings to actually shoot. Meaning my gun is borderline useless, unless I find a way to make more bullets per bullet. Same goes for the gunpowder, since I definitely don't want to run low on that either. Thankfully, at least wadding is quite easy to make. It's just some linen made from flax, cut with scissors. So for now I decided to become firearm abstinent. I cannot afford to lose one more resource by shooting everything that moves. So I hid my gun in the chest for now. But hey, at least the copper molds cooled down. And that means that I finally have tools to my name. Mainly a pickaxe and a hammer. But that's really all I need to dig out all the copper deposits marked on my map. I probably said it a billion times, but below the copper bits I picked up earlier, there's always some actual copper ore. Crazy stuff. The plan was to dig out most, if not all of the ore deposits, but ultimately I settled on only one for now. Turns out that digging in 50 degrees can cause you to muck-fry your brain. After bringing the copper chunks home, I smacked them with a hammer and got myself some copper bits. Now all I had to do is smelt them too. Anvil requires quite a bit of metal to make. So while the metal was cooking, I sat down in water outside the house and drew what I remembered from last night. A 3-legged creature which I drew having 5 legs for some reason, encircling the world. The second drawing was slightly better though. I like this one more. After that little drawing break, I poured the molten copper into all available molds. Now in a couple of hours I should have not only one more set of tools, but also a full copper anvil. So in the meantime I played around with some more clay. I made a bunch of jugs for water and some storage vessels for future food. Then, after some more work, I set up the kilns to harden them. And that was just enough time for the copper anvil and molds to be ready. So I cracked the anvil mold and put it outside, which is dumb because I won't be using it outside. But more importantly, now I need a forge by putting some cobblestone in shape of a forge. And for that I dug out some sandstone and made it out of sandstone. I moved the anvil and the forge into the house and started my first project by heating up a bunch of copper ingots. And another problem. Turns out a forge in the house is considered a source of heat. And now my body temperature sits firmly at 47 degrees of the Celsius variant. And that is very deeply in the ouchie too hot territory. Thankfully I just decided to ignore signs of a very severe heat stroke and just raw-dogged that smithing session like a pro. Firstly, I made a saw. If you can't see it now, that's because it's a saw, not a C. Also, my eyes are melting from the heat. Then, I started making the prospecting pick. I installed some mods for prospecting too, so I was very curious. After that, I made a bunch of javelins made out of copper. The stone ones were pretty overpowered, so making them out of metal couldn't hurt, at least not me. And lastly, I made some nails and strips to make some chests later. So now with my new equipment that I totally knew how to use based on how I'm holding that javelin, I was ready. Because now I went into the wilderness of the island in search of the forbidden fruit. Wood that is not of the bamboo kind. I cut down a lot of acacia trees, since its reddish color was appealing to me. Not that I had a lot of choice, that was like the only tree growing here, kinda. And while I was chopping, I made sure to grab as many saplings as possible. I was planting them closer to my house, so I don't have to run to the southern jungle to grab basic wood. All of the wood I gathered I turned into planks using my new copper saw, and then set it all up in nice piles in my stockpile area. Although I might have slightly underestimated how many planks I would actually make. That's a big pile of red planks right here. They're like sons to me, each and every one of them. So I made doors out of them. I guess I hate crude doors more than I love my newly acquired family. But another cool thing I can make out of my wooden relatives is the so-called shade house. So a building which actually lowers temperature ever so slightly to make farming in hot climates easier. There were two main issues with farming on this island. I am surrounded by water that kills plants, and I am surrounded by temperatures that kills plants. So I decided to build a special building that will possibly fix both. Still, despite a slight risk, I really wanted the farm building to also be floating in seawater. But this time, I would isolate the farming blocks better so the crops don't eat too much salt. And while I knew it won't look the greatest with the current tropical style, I used a combination of bamboo with beautiful rammed earth blocks, topped off with the totally color scheme fitting red shade roofs. After finishing the building, the shade house effect seemed to be working with stable -5 degrees bonus. All I had to do was just not look at the building from the outside. It is quite uglish, but there is a certain beauty to buildings constructed out of desperation. Or so I tell myself. But at least now I have some space to farm. It would be nice to put some non-bamboo food on the table from time to time. So now I made my first bucket using some planks and vine rope, and started slowly transporting lake water to the building. Slowly, because apparently one of the mods hinders player speed when carrying water. I guess it's so that you just don't carry 50 liters of drinkable water everywhere, which kind of makes sense. But after setting everything up, I tilled all the farming plots, checked if plants for sure feel the power of the shade house, which they do, and planted all the rice seeds I had on hand. All I can do is wait and hope this works. Right after that I checked on my new batch of clay crafts, and those were already cooked. So I put them all on the platform outside the house. And I'm not showing this for no reason, because them being exactly in this spot here is going to be crucial. Because now, having done some farming, I started obsessing over having a sustainable clean water production. And by obsessing, I mean I started digging random holes in the ground all over the place, and building wells using the pickaxe instead of a shovel, which lets me build the opposite of a shallow well, so a deep well. The only problem was that I was having issues finding a good spot. I wanted to balance out how far away from the ocean the well could be while still producing water that is not salty. But even when I did find drinkable water, the well output was usually extremely low, which was a deal breaker. To find what type of water I would find deep down, I was using shallow wells, which was a dumb idea because shallow wells are not actually connected at all to what type of water is below, which means I wasted a lot of time because I am stupid. Thankfully, it didn't take me long to realize that a prospecting pick can find underground aquifers, leading me to chunks with actual drinkable water by using reproducible science. And that led me to spending a lot of time prospecting, looking for any suitable places for a proper well. And here we go. The cool little red dots here mean there is very little chance of finding water. That is very encouraging. But I did ultimately decide on the spot west of my base, which seemed to have the best chance of water of the bunch. So now I took a quick bath before digging, which let me observe bamboo grow in real time, and then I started creating the well, this time opting for apparently the optimal 5 blocks of depth. And when I dug out the well, I was ecstatic, because not only is this well pretty close to my base, but it's also producing a whopping 13.5 liters of fresh well water every single day. That fixes the drinkable water issue pretty fair and square. But that's not where the good news ends, because tropical storms seem to have arrived on the island, and the rain will probably last for a while. And that's when I noticed that the dishes I left outside are actually filling up with drinkable rainwater in real time. That's a double win in the thirst war. But the task wasn't finished just yet. So I picked up some sandstone, smelted some copper, reshaped the smelted copper into a chisel using the ancient technique of slamhammer on weirdly appetizing looking metal, and began the cosmetic upgrade of my newly dug out well. And during all the chiseling I was doing, I was constantly under fire, since an interdimensional rift spawned right next to me the moment I touched that cursed well.
Man, I really just wanna do my little well, dude. Please.
Sooner or later though, I managed to finish the piece. So now I committed a boar slaughter, giving me some fat and possibly 20 years in boar prison. My defense is that I really needed the fat, because I will use it to make a well winch, letting me lower a bucket into the well, so I can actually reach the water that is slowly accumulating there. So I cooked the fat in a pot, grabbed some vines for rope, made a bunch of wooden axles, and created the mechanism no problemo. That kind of concludes the well story. I can finally grab some fresh water whenever I need. It even has some cool little animations for it. Water problem is now officially fixed. And I, for one, can chug it straight out of the bucket all day long. But this is where my lucky run of good things happening to me ended. I checked on my farm, and well, let's just say I don't remember planting dead crops. Turns out that my phenomenal insulation from seawater didn't work, and looking at it now, it seems pretty obvious why. The reason is I suck. So, in a way defeated, I collected whatever seeds I was able to scrap from the dead crops, gathered a bunch of sand, and scattered it all around to try to make as big of an artificial gap between the crops and seawater. I basically built a little sand island, just for the crop farm building. But when I planted the rice again, it started already saying that the crops are being damaged by the seawater, meaning I guess there is no saving this. So I altered the deal, praying I don't have to alter it any further. I swapped the farmable soil for some rammed earth, and started remodeling the whole building by removing the shade roof entirely and swapping most of the blocks for wooden planks. And that's what it turned into. From a shade house farm to basically a free real estate I will probably rent to a poor student with loans. Or maybe I will just turn it into a storage room if I'm feeling particularly cute. So now a wildcard idea. I decided to search some of the nearby ruins to occupy myself with something. For some reason I ignored their existence until this very moment, but no more. The idea was to get some random stuff, like flax, hopefully, that doesn't really grow here well. But the real cream of the cream, or whatever the expression is, the bony soil was my main idea here. So, dirt with human freaking remains in it. This is some good stuff that drops the best stuff in the game if you pan through it. And I for one need the money to pay for my clothes. But I also finally hit that one gravestone thing. Turns out I didn't need any pickaxe for it at all. The main chest was hidden under some soft dirt this entire time. The chest consisted mostly of a crown, a schematic for something I will probably never make, and a person of the expired variety. So to commemorate the dead, I stole the coolest stone sword from the gravestone and put it in my own base as a trophy. Right after that I spent some time panning through the bony soil, hoping for some freebies I can sell later, and some money. It's not much, but it's also not a very honest job. At the end of the day I finally got all my goodies, and while books and rib cages are kinda cool, I made my first 7 gears this way. And because my camera is constantly wobbly due to heat, my grass clothes lost their cooling ability due to the thirst mod slightly breaking them, and the fact that I spent most of my day in a specially prepared waterhole in my house, I decided to finally go and do something about the overheating problem. So the next morning I hopped on the raft and started making my way to the clothes trader. And here I was able to purchase cool pants that cool me down by 1.5 degrees, which is not a lot and doesn't really fix the issue, but it is a step in the right direction. Plus, it took all my money, so I can't complain. And as I was about to leave, it literally started hailing in 50 degrees. It's so hot that the game doesn't know how to handle itself, so I tried sleeping through it at the trader's bed, but I woke up to the ground shaking underneath my feet again. A temporal storm warning. And while I was trying to spot anything unusual, I got bitten by a radioactive spider. But instead of turning into Spider-Man, I lost half my HP. Well, I am now stuck in a trader's house, in pitch dark, without any light source, low in HP and also starving. So I decided to just beeline it straight into the raft in absolute darkness, hoping nothing's gonna kill me. And I'ma tell you, sailing in complete darkness with temporal eldritch sounds coming from the sky due to a temporal storm closing in, and occasional lightning to reveal the regular storm that's currently raging was a really heavy vibe. But all things considered, I got home safely, and calmly prepared for the temporal storm by making a nice acacia wall for protection. And when the time came, and the storm was slowly starting, I just hid in my little reverse jacuzzi and waited it out while observing it from a slightly more cowardly perspective. And I must tell you, temporal storms with the bunch of mods I have installed really are freaking terrifying to look at. And while monsters are not that scary after getting used to them, and they do sometimes get stuck in goofy places, seeing Dave slowly circle around, too huge to be fully visible due to the storm clouds, is the most eldritch thing I've ever seen in any game. But hey, while the storm finished, I finally had a plan. I had a lot of time to think about it in my little water tub. Every playthrough I always go for tin bronze because it's the easiest bronze to make. But not this time. Now, I really wanted that black bronze premium stuff, which apart from being more durable while being the same technology tier, it just looks kinda sick, you know? To make it, I need to combine copper with some silver, deposits of which have been found east, but also gold, which luckily can be found west. So first I made my way to the gold deposits and started mining. Thanks to a couple of mods, my prospecting pick has some new functionality. The most important being the borehole mode. It basically shows you what ores are beneath you in a cylindrical shape, removing some of the annoying randomness if you are looking for something specific without being cheaty. So knowing that gold lies somewhere below me, I kept digging down, and surprisingly the first ore I found was actually tin. I'm really using all my strength right now not to make tin bronze again. It's so very tempting. But problems arose quite quickly after, when during some of my more downwards mining, I accidentally uncovered a random cave with a bell monster in it. And this guy is way out of my league right now. And while I was trying to avoid him by mining sideways, I accidentally uncovered a whole cave filled with saltpeter, a core component in making gunpowder, which means I guess I can't really complain after all. Then again, the bell was still really annoying, and not by pure danger, but by the fact that the bell for some reason sounds like a freaking trumpet, and I can hear it through walls the entire time I'm digging. And if that wasn't enough, after some time of mining down, where gold was supposed to be, I found quartz. And that makes the situation difficult for two reasons. One, I realized that gold actually spawns within quartz veins, so there is no way for me to avoid digging through it. And two, quartz requires a bronze tool to mine out, meaning I technically need bronze tools to mine stuff to make different bronze tools. I decided to roll with it though, digging out more tin, and then some more copper, then preparing the ores by breaking the chunks into metal bits on a couple of stone blocks I found in some ruins. And then I lost my train of thought completely and started chiseling the stones into the shape of a table. Don't even ask me why I got sidetracked so hard I spontaneously became artistic. It did turn out to be a pretty crazy table though. But going back into the main task, I started smelting the copper and tin in one crucible, and then poured the alloy into molds. These are my new tin bronze tools. I just couldn't avoid making tin bronze after all. It haunts my dreams. With my new pickaxe I started chipping away at the quartz deposit until I finally found some native gold in quartz. This is absolutely huge and probably the first time I've ever seen gold in Vintage Story. So naturally I dug out as much of it as I found. And when the time came to leave the mines, so basically when monsters started spawning due to my low sanity level, I came back home and counted 53 gold bits. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's more than enough. So having gold in my possession, I went to the second location to dig out silver. And this time, while committing the cardinal block game sin of mining straight down, yet again I found something unusual. This time it was a small room with a broken translocator in it. So basically a broken teleporter I've never actually seen in the wild before. Apparently it can be fixed, and it can get you to some random location thousands of blocks away. But for now it's just a mental note for later. After adjusting the mining strategy yet again, I found some quartz and, within it, some silver ore as well. So now having all the ores prepared, I was ready to create my first black bronze batch. Getting the proportions was a bit tricky at first, but when it worked, I was really excited to finally see what the hype is about. I even felt like it was worth having its own segment in my notebook, so I scribbled a real quick sketch of the whole thing. Not the best one, but I did fix some of them later, so I'll probably show them at the end of the video or something. After that, the metal was ready to pour, so that's what I did. And the max temperature texture kind of reminded me of Minecraft's lava for some reason. Well, at least until it started to cool down, and the black, kind of purpley color really started to set. But before the black bronze was fully ready, I decided to spend some time with the smithy using the reminder of the tin bronze. I use it to make a bunch of quality of life things, like scissors to get more saplings and sticks from trees, and a scythe to make gathering grass easier. But probably the most interesting thing is that I actually made myself something called short sword parts. And a bunch of javelins. Javelins and the rest are pretty self-explanatory, but what I can do with the short sword parts is make a small handle from a wooden log and combine it with the rest to make a tin bronze short sword. A modded weapon, but something I dearly miss in vanilla Vintage Story. Regular swords are just cool, you know? you can poke and stuff. After that, the black bronze was ready, so I used it to make basic tools. And well, it's probably the coolest looking set of tools in the game. Was it worth the trouble if tin bronze is so much easier to get? Probably not, but I did it anyway. It's hard for me to get out of the habit of doing the same things over and over in each playthrough in games like Vintage Story, so I guess it's important to try new things. So now I was left with one more thing to do: seal the house using windows to counteract the crazy temperatures. So I used my new tin bronzy shears to collect some sticks and combined them with the clear quartz I got from the gold and silver mines to make a bunch of early game glass. And the only thing left to do was swapping all the pretend windows and stuff for the real thing in all of my buildings. There are only 2 buildings, but still. And sealing of the house actually worked. The temperature was actually now not affecting me as long as I'm inside the house, permanently staying at the comfy level. And while I talk about it like I knew that's how it's gonna work, during gameplay I actually wasn't sure if that would fix anything. Thankfully, I guess it did. My house is now technically a fridge, and it's the only place safe from the high temperatures. But now, having made windows and stuff, I crave for far greater things in life. I am sick of eating bamboo shoots for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and I need some proper and renewable food source. But before doing anything farm related, I spent some time doing random brain side quests. So I went out on a little gazelle hunt, this time using mostly spears. Still can't get over how much more satisfying hunting is with blood trails and the flea exhaustion mod, so that was a lot of fun. Meat from the hunt went into a couple of good stews, spare fat got processed into oil lamps, which are now, well, my favorite persistent light source I guess. And the hides, after a short curation period, were used in making a bunch of backpacks to get my inventory space expanded finally. But I also finally saw Dave up close, just menacingly walking towards me, which of course meant I had to wait out a pretty bad temporal storm. Thankfully those don't last too long if you hide away from the enemies in your house like a brave man like me. But after all that, I finally started building my first proper farming building. An animal pen, actually. And this time I decided to tame boars, because I've never actually had them on my farms before. It did take a bunch of running around and a long while of scaring the animals into the pen through a special dirt ramp, but after a moment I had 2 male boars and 1 lady boar. So for now they will just kind of chill here. Whether I successfully tame them fully depends on how much time I will spend on this island, so no promises. Although I really wonder, what do fully tamed boars actually do? Anyway, after that I dug out a bunch of dirt from around the base and turned it into rammed earth. I started building the second important farming building, the farming building. And this one should be far enough from the seawater and big enough to sustain quite a bunch of crops. But of course I couldn't focus on just one thing at a time. So kind of by accident, I started a whole side project that kind of took over. The rammed earth wall around my encampment. And I'm gonna be honest, it took a moment, but I really wanted to get that separation from the wilds going. It's kind of hard to say anything about it though. It really was just a wall from dirt. So after that business was done, I came back to the future farm and finished it off with 128 shade roofs made purely out of acacia. And then I added some lake water for the future crops. And this way I finally had a farm that would actually probably work. Seawater is far away and temperature is lowered by the shade roofs. So I tilled all the soil that needed tilling and planted the first crops. So of course the rice that has been neglected in my chest for a while now. And at least, according to the tooltip, the crops should be fine. No warning about seawater or temperature. I take that as a rare win. So now that the evening turned into night, I spent a bit of time improving on my storeroom building. I didn't like how the colors were so different from the main house. So I swapped all the acacia boards and roofs for bamboo and warm-colored kapok wood blocks. And I might have thrown a little connector room between the 2 buildings. Just for safety, monsters like to sit atop the roof here, so it's better if the base is fully enclosed. And that kind of concludes the food production improvements that turned into a full base renovation. And now I have a fully functional shade farm, letting me potentially farm, maybe even hopefully flax. But I also developed a newfound sense of moderate safety. The walls are not a guarantee, but now the base feels less like a hut of a castaway and more like a fort of a castaway. Plus, there is one more unfinished project. A future tower I promised myself to build before I leave this place. But that's still in the future, because I've decided to start doing something slightly different now. I finally started properly interacting with merchants. selling goods to them, even if they are wearing waffle armor. I guess this guy's Belgian. I've realized now that buying one clothing item at a time is no way to lower my body temperature. I need to buy in bulk to stop the spinny head for good. So I started the Operation Moneymaker, actively hunting down animals for their skins and ores for their ores, sitting for hours, smelting metals and turning them into tools I can actually proudly sell. It's not the most efficient money-making method, but it works. Slowly. But it's worth mentioning that in the meantime I also improved my charcoal making method, and whenever possible I was tending to and planting many new crops on my farm, like amaranth or cassava, but also mass producing clay crafts and firing them in my new fire pits. Nothing special, but earthy walls have their perks. After that I did some more smithing and selling, and the pile of gears was growing at a satisfactory pace. And the only thing holding it back being traders restocking things they can buy only once per 7 days. So instead of pursuing more cash, I gathered some grass and mined out a nice little opening right next to the entrance to my base. It didn't take much more work than that to enlarge it and put some nice grass rooftops as decorations. And in no time I had my very first cellar hut. Here I can put the freshly fired storage vessels and considerably slow down the spoilage of any food I have, which is extremely important in a place this hot. Otherwise, anything that is not bamboo rots in hours. Especially now, when the food production is finally rolling with the new farm growing me some grains. And the pigs, which may or may not be turned into meat during my darkest hour. Okay, but now I finally grabbed some of my hard-earned trading money and made my way to the clothing island to finally buy something useful. I bought a couple of things, but the thing that turned out to be especially useful was the copper bracelets. And those decreased my body temperature by -5 degrees, which is huge. And apart from that, I bought some other stuff, and wearing it all brought me down to around -14 Celsius, just from clothes alone. But another thing that is definitely helping is the overall global temperature. After months, it's finally dropped from oven-worthy 50 Celsius to a slightly less hellish 40 Celsius during the day. And just as I was sailing back home, I saw my old destroyed boat. And that reminded me why I'm even doing all this. So, at home I read up about building a brand new boat of my own, one that will stand the test of the seas. But boat is not the only thing I will need, because having a proper gun of my own is something I will need both here and on the sea. But I decided to first get the easy stuff out of the way. So I started looking into gunpowder making. And apparently it's made from blasting powder, which is just saltpeter, powdered sulfur, and some type of coal, like charcoal. So since I produce charcoal daily, and saltpeter is easy to find in my gold mines, all I needed was to locate sulfur. And that is done of course by prospecting. So prospect I did, ultimately getting an ultra high sulfur reading in the southern part of the island. And not long after that, I found the sulfur itself. Also a first for me since I've never actually seen it in person before in Vintage Story. Thankfully, I probably won't need to find it again, since the vein was quite bountiful. And if that wasn't enough, I also found lead right next to it. A perfect material to make ammunition from. So that's pretty lucky on my part. So now, having all this sulfur, lead and a vintage ton of limestone, all I needed was a quern to grind this stuff down. This is another one of those things I explained too many times, but the gist of it is that digging around certain rocks lets you collect them as a whole Minecraft style, and those are used in making a quern, which is really easy to do. So back home I set my little base for querning, including some barrels for later, right in the middle of my base. And well, I had to grind down all the sulfur I gathered, so that took a bit of time, which I spent mostly listening to random podcasts. After that, I combined all the ingredients to create blasting powder, and that was actually much easier than I imagined. But there is more to do, because now I had to wet the blasting powder, creating the so-called blasting powder with wet in the brackets. And this wet blasting powder had to now dry from 0% to 100% dry. And while I could hack it from behind when it buys me games at the store, it seemed to dry the fastest by simply sitting in my inventory. So while the blasting powder was drying, I spent some time making some bullet molds. After all, blasting powder has to blast something, and it's better if it blasts bullets rather than me. And thanks to the molds, I was able to cast about 48 bullets at a time, making it almost impossible to run out of ammunition from now on. After that, the blasting powder dried, turning into coarse gunpowder. So the next and final step was to grind the coarse gunpowder into regular, finely ground, fresh powder of the gun. I hope I am making Americans proud. So now I have a way to make a lot of gunpowder, but also a lot of bullets. Now it's time to finally swap this old carbine into something that won't fall apart if I use it more than 10 times. And while reading about making firearms made me a bit confused, since it seemed pretty complicated at first, it all basically boils down to get brass. So an alloy of zinc and copper. So since copper isn't a problem, I began my search for zinc. And it just so happens that I found traces of it right down this hole. But the tricky part is that this hole turned out to be the entrance to the exact cave system in which the Bell Monster resides, pretty much immediately sounding an alarm and spawning a ton of drifters and other enemies at the moment I got close. And without any armor, which I just don't own yet, it is very possible I will just get one shot no matter what. So I came back home and grabbed a couple of spears, killed a guy in my cellar, and he just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. And then I came back to the hellhole with full intent on making a couple of kamikaze rounds, hoping one of them will get him. And already on the first one I got absolutely demolished, and immediately got swallowed by the cave itself while running for my life. I took a little refuge in the local dungeon room, separating myself from the chasing enemies. But as if things couldn't get any worse, the earth started trembling once again, meaning a temporal storm will soon approach, and I am as good as dead anyway. So I opened up the dirt blocks and basically gave up. No harm done, apart from losing my backpacks I forgot to unequip. Thankfully I am an immortal being that glows when clapped. The next Bell assassination attempt fared no better. I got a couple of cheap shots with the javelins, but ultimately I got driven away quite easily. And by driven away I mean dead. Temporal storm was closing in, but I wanted to get rid of that bell once and for all. So I grabbed my gun and the ammo and went down to shoot that trumpet sounding bell. Yet this time for some reason I couldn't find it, no idea what happened. But the bell either dropped down and died, or simply despawned. And I for one was now running for my life, due to the temporal storm that was about to happen. Thankfully, I made it home just in time. I am still not proud of sitting out most of the storms, but then again, I really am getting clapped even by drifters. I am in no position to do any real fighting just yet. Although I did get a temporal gear from one, and that's going to be important, because apparently you can make a temporal gear amulet, which can cool me down by yet another 5 degrees. And this officially puts heat as a non-threat. And if anything, it actually makes me feel cold now, in 39 Celsius, which is 102 Fahrenheit. But while that sounds like a bad thing, it actually opens the doors for armor for me. I could not wear any thus far because armor raises the body temperature significantly, and now I have a way to counter it. Okay, but before throwing myself into the fires of armor smithing, I still had to find zinc for the gun. And I looked everywhere, and I mean everywhere, and I had real trouble pinpointing where it actually is. My mining expeditions led me down to the Mantle, which is basically Vintage Stories' version of Bedrock. And finally, around that insane depth, I managed to find zinc. And the why I couldn't see it is pretty obvious. It's a really well camouflaged ore. I probably walked past it several times so far. But well, at least finally now, after way longer than this video lets on, I had some zinc. So now, finally at home, I started preparation for the monumental effort that is gunsmithing. From making a mold for a gun barrel, to smithing tin bronze plates, smelting brass for the first time in my life, and turning it into ingots that also got turned into plates. And with that I was able to make 2 wheel lock mechanisms, the hardest part of making the gun, at least for me. After that I was smithing a ramrod and filled out the gun barrel mold with tin bronze. And that, my fellow castaways, is how you make a brand new state-of-the-art, still smelling like a new car tin bronze pew-pew gun with a whopping 750 durability. I will be able to pass this bad boy down to my grandchildren, and it's going to outlive them too. So now I made a bunch of linen patches. Thankfully I am growing a small amount of flax now, so that should cover it. And finally I was able to reload my gun for the first time, which takes a moment. I probably should reload before the fight, like a week before the fight. But when it works, it works. So now I immediately ran out into the wilderness to test it out on gazelles. And let me tell you, hunting with a rifle really is the most fun you can get. I must have spent a good chunk of the afternoon just running around in the steppes and shooting at everything that dared to move slower than a bullet. And for the first time ever, I did not have to eat bamboo for dinner. I would have even leftovers for the next couple of days from this amount of meat. But better yet, I finally started grinding down all the limestone I gathered so far, and began the production of my own line of leather. I was a bit worried about the lack of oaks in the area to make weak and strong tannin, but turns out that acacias are just as good, which was a huge relief for me. So I made a bunch of lime water to soak the hides in and a lot of tannin for each of the barrels. And in the meantime, I made another entry or two in my diary, which turned out to be more of an art book than anything at this point. I tried my best here, but this time my mouse was not cooperating. Still, I managed to draw both the new walls of my settlement and the gun, or at least half of the gun. I got the perspective slightly wrong. After that, I tended to my leather station again, moving hides from lime water into weak tannin, plus adding some more acacias to other barrels to make strong tannin. I'm not going to go super in depth here because I explained this process a zillion times in my other videos, but long story short, leather is just a matter of days now. So now I sat down and made another anvil mold, and by made I mean I have to wait for it to get fired. Time to do some more age progression now. So I mined a bunch of copper and a bunch of tin, and this stuff is going to be used to make a tin bronze anvil, when the mold is ready at least. But the actual key ingredient for my next age is the location of iron, and there is a couple of good spots. And by a couple, I mean none, mostly. Because for some reason I actually had a lot of issues finding any iron ore. I must have checked at least 5 different locations, by mining almost all the way down in each one of them. But thankfully, that bad streak didn't last too long, as I found a large amount of magnetite in the 6th hole. 6th time the charm, as they say, probably somewhere. And the magnetite is a pretty chill ore to mine. There's always a lot of it in one spot and it's rather easy to follow, since it spawns in nice flat discs most of the time. Actually, I'm lying, I have no idea. The iron mines were also the place where I realized that my bronze falx might need changing to something better. Using it is super hard in tight spaces. It just kind of gets stuck on the ceiling and stuff, which is not ideal in a 1v1 with a basic drifter. But I also spotted one more important improvement when I started leaving the mines too. Like, bringing more ladders next time, maybe, yeah. But overall the mining expeditions were a success. I have copper, tin and quite a bit of iron. The next bus stop on my way to the Iron Age is making the bloomeries. So I ran around like a headless chicken gathering all the flint I could find from the nearby wilds and cooked it all up using charcoal. And while that was happening, I also took the liberty of pouring tin bronze into the anvil mold to get that beautiful tin bronze anvil, which will let me work iron actually. After that I gathered some clay, milled some of the cooked flint, which is very tasty. Really, you should try. I don't know why I'm doing. I don't know why. I have no idea why I recorded this. And then I used both of the flint and the clay to create the ultimate clay, which is fire clay. And then I used the fire clay to make the ultimate bricks, the fire bricks, which need to be fired, making it the ultimate vintage story paradox. Which I didn't mind at all, because now I have really nothing else to do but wait for the stuff to get cooked. So I just spend my day hunting, but this time with spears. Turns out flax is really hard to grow here, so I just don't have enough wadding to shoot stuff willy-nilly anymore. But after that, the fire bricks were bricked, so I used them to make my first bloomeries, just waiting to be filled with iron and charcoal. But since I don't feel like using up all my charcoal for iron making, I decided to dig out some black coal from the nearby coal deposits. And that's when, for the first time in my vintage story career, I found fire clay in the wilds. That has never happened before. It's just kind of here, below every coal ore. That's actually amazing. There's so much of it here that I virtually never run out. No more wasting charcoal on cooking flint. Plus, the coal deposits themselves are also pretty chill to have, you know? So now I use the black coal to cook up some iron nuggets into iron blooms in the bloomeries. And since that will take a moment on its own, I cleared out the outside storage and made myself a little smithy place. Its shape will be kind of fluid though, since I will move stuff around all the time here. And the next morning the bloomeries stopped blooming, and the iron blooms were fully bloomed. So I plopped them on the floor like so, and started working the iron. But since I forgot about the smithing changes from the last update, I of course forgot to make the bellows, so iron would reach the desired temperature. They are easy to make but require leather, which is still a couple of days off, so I just kind of waited. I really had nothing else to do. And in 3 days time, the leather was fully leathery, so I combined it with a bunch of nails and planks to make the small leather bellows, no problem. And now the forge can reach the iron working temperatures without issues. But my iron working didn't actually last that long. A temporal storm hit just in time. And I say just in time because this time I was not playing Vintage Story, but Call of Duty Vintage Warfare. My new gun was slightly less powerful than I would have hoped for, but it was still a crazy upgrade from my usual waiting around. So when the storm ended, I took care of the remainder of the enemies and came back to my smithy like nothing ever happened. Eldritch horrors can suck my gun barrel. I spent hours in the smithy now, turning iron blooms one by one into iron ingots, and then the iron ingots into useful tools. And I did it all manually, since unfortunately we do not have any fast-flowing streams for a water wheel automation, and I don't grow nowhere near enough flax to constitute building a windmill without waiting years for it to grow. But nonetheless, the Iron Age was progressing. I was mining, I was smelting, I was almost dying, I was blooming, and I was smacking that hot metal like it owed me doubloons. I even completely emptied the freaking iron mine, and that literally never happened before. Iron was being ironed all over the place. It was a glorious industrial site. I even had to invest in more than one forge to keep up with the metal, and the small pile of iron ingots was slowly turning into a big one. And that's the moment where I started turning the ingots into actual things, like pieces of armor, which in this mod pack are much easier and less tedious to make. All I had to do was just make a bunch of iron armor plates to make an actual iron armor. So soon after that smithing spree, I was fully clad in an iron plate armor like it was nothing. Definitely faster, but not necessarily cheaper to make. But let me tell you, it's one hell of an armor to start with. And yeah, can't complain about iron tools either. Those are pretty powerful. So powerful in fact that I started to look into building a boat, although the handbook doesn't really explain what exactly is needed here. That I will have to figure out as I go. So first I made myself some leather backpacks. Expanded inventory space is definitely nice and worth it. But right after that, I built the first boat-related thing, the wooden boat supports. I call them that because I can't pronounce roller logs without sounding dumb. Roller logs. Placing them will determine where my boat is constructed, and it even shows it nicely using this 3D blueprint thing. So I prepared the area for ship launching on the western part of my base. And then I put down the roller logs down. Now the construction site basically tells me what to bring to build my own boat step by step. And there is a lot of steps. So I started bringing in all the materials, most of which were planks, firewood or anything acacia flavored. Thankfully I had a lot of planks and stuff in stock, so the first couple of steps were easy enough, and the boat was slowly shaping up nicely. And when I started running low on acacia planks, all I had to do was go outside my base. Planting all those trees finally paid off. Some of them even provided me with vines, which made the rope requirement of the boat building a walk in the park. That's it, until I hit the dreadful step 17, which requires me to somehow get 21 linen for sails, which is somewhere in the ballpark of 300 flax fibers. And while my farm has many tropical plants, flax is not really one of them. It doesn't really grow wild in tropical climates, at least not in that quantity anyway. So my first idea was to walk around the traders and try to buy off any flax or linen that was available. But that idea quickly died. Traders either didn't have it or sold very little for crazy prices. So instead, I hopped on my raft and started sailing north. Sure, it's not exactly in the spirit of being stranded on an island, but it was either sailing to other islands and gathering any wild flax or giving up on the boat plan altogether. So I sailed thousands of blocks using only a bamboo raft with my own hands and a bit of luck. I was stopping at every other tropical island and gathering any of the extremely rare flax that I could get my hands on. Most of them were growing on hills or mountainsides where temperatures were much colder, and once I even had to fight some hyenas to get it. But after the adventures in the outlying islands in this archipelago, I sailed back. Turns out that after a couple of days, I managed to get around 61 flax seeds, which after ripening should give me enough flax to make the boat. I don't think ripening is the right word here. I came home to a wonderful sight. My boars finally had some children. I actually didn't know that one sow could give birth to several small boarlets. Still, I had some work to do, so I planted all the 61 flax seeds and hoped for the best. With a bit of luck, enough of them would survive to give me 21 linen. But since this flax thing put my boat building on hold, I could finally give some attention to other things. First, finish up this tower thing I wanted to build. And second, I have to go back into the wilds, get into the silver mines, and there I will have to find a way to fix the translocator. I will leave this island, whether by a boat or by magical teleportation technology. So I grabbed my iron plate armor and put it on. I am going to need it, because now I have to go into the caves. And if my research is right, items necessary to fix the translocator are hidden beneath. Temporal gears from monsters and metal parts from dungeons. Firstly, I had to farm the monsters to drop one more temporal gear. I already had two on me, one being the medallion, but I needed the third one, and that turned out to be a very slow process. So instead of using my old stabby sword, I put some work in the smithy and created this, an iron great sword. That should help with the monster hunting. So that's what I did now. I sat in the mines and fought monsters for days like a dwarfy witcher, still without luck. No temporal gears for me. So instead I took a break to explore some ruins in abandoned caves, sprinkled basically everywhere here. I was hoping to find some metal parts, or anything that can be turned into metal parts. But I wasn't picky with the valuables either. I looted anything I can bring back home into the civilization to make me rich on my own terms. And after a couple of days of that, my exploration soon brought me to a slightly different dungeon. That wasn't just a room with some garbage in it. And this one took a moment to fully explore. Here I found anything ranging from literal tabletop games to some clay ovens, a weird welder armor guy, and finally some metal parts just nonchalantly waiting to be picked up in a random shelf. So now I did some more monster hunting, and well, luck comes in pairs or something like that, because pretty much on my third drifter I got the temporal gear. Without wasting any time, I went to the silver mines and found the translocator. I had to carefully insert all the ingredients, including my temporal gear amulet, one by one into the machine until it started glowing again. And without wasting any time, I decided to risk it all and get off this island for good. If this works, I don't even need a boat. The translocator teleported me into another place, a similar place. The only problem being this place was a cave under the ocean, not even that far from my original island. And the room itself was completely enclosed. Unfortunately, turned out to be a dead end. Translocator is not the way out of this archipelago. Sucks, because it would be a nice twist, building a boat only to just blink out of here like this. I used the translocator again to get back to my island and climbed out using the ladder. I really hope the boat will work, otherwise I might be stuck here forever. So since I still had some time before the flax grows, I gathered all the dirt I could and began the construction of the tower. I wasn't sure what it's going to be or what it's going to look like. All I wanted was to just leave something behind. Something man-made. There really wasn't that much to it. I just built up until I was satisfied with the height and then added some details here and there until it looked like something more than just a bunch of dirt stacked up high. But probably most importantly, this was my way of saying farewell to this tropical hell. I was able to see the entire island from here, and the entire island could see me from out there. My work here was finished, minutes turned into hours and hours into days. And the last harvest came soon enough. Most of the crops survived, some didn't. Thankfully, the ones that did were enough to make about 23 linen, which I immediately used to give my boat wings. And my ticket to civilization was ready, just waiting for whatever comes next. And let me tell you, it was quite an improvement from a simple bamboo raft. So now I started packing my things, taking all the important cargo from the house and base in general, putting it all in chests on board of the ship, slowly taking all the valuables alongside the mundane items with me. But before moving on, I had one more thing to do. So I destroyed the main gate and opened up the boar pen. I never managed to get them to generation 3. It really does take a long time to tame the animals fully, but the least I can do is let them out into the wilds to live a semi-normal life. That, and of course I had to draw one more last diary entry to commemorate the moment. And to sum up this whole adventure in one simple sentence. Man, was it hot. Thank you all for watching. I hope you had a good time, and don't forget to subscribe to make my phone make a notification sound that makes me retake voiceover lines because I forget to mute it. And I hope to see you in my next adventure. Bye bye.